Welcome to episode 73 of the PuckPod by BD Sports. Deja Bruins Part 3. Dave's actually workshopping another name. We just talked about it. And his is a pretty good one too. We usually like debrief, or not debrief, we usually brief before these recordings. We barely did it this time, like maybe 2 minutes of talking, keep it all raw, fresh emotion on this one. Leafs lose game seven, the Boston Bruins 2-1 in overtime. Bruins are going on a round two to play the Florida Panthers, and the Leafs are going home. How are you guys feeling? Mainly Dave. I know Brian's feeling a little indifferent, but Dave, how are you feeling this morning?
Um, Not great. Obviously. I don't know. I think I said it to these guys before. I feel like empty. Kind of like the Leafs style of play. Um, yeah, I'm like emotionless right now. I don't even know. I I let myself believe for I think it was a minute 21. I let myself believe. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know a way. I don't see a I'm not seeing a way forward right now. It's really tough to see a way forward, maybe more so than in years past, because we could say we could say what we want, like we could say our true feelings, right? On here, I could say the Leafs need to do this in the off season in order for it to change, and it seems like a lot of people are in the same opinion, like in relatively the same opinion, for a lot of those things, and it just seems like the the franchise, the upper management doesn't seem to want to act on those changes. So it feels empty from them. It feels empty from the guys on the ice. I don't know if you saw a lot of like the post game interviews. It just a lot of the same song and dance. Like I thought, we hung in there right to the end, and it's empty. And the quotes from the coach are just empty. And um, yeah, I don't know, empty.
Yeah,
That's the word of the day.
there's a lot there, and we'll talk about like our true feelings because I think it's important to at least like give our opinion on what we think they should do or should happen. But yeah, also like give that perspective on how realistic are things, and maybe they are realistic, maybe our opinion and what could actually happen are aligned. Definitely apathetic, that's the word too, right? Empty, apathetic, that's what you're feeling, and that's definitely in part what I'm feeling. I definitely woke up a bit better, like feeling a bit better about it this morning because I was just kind of like, I've been here, this team has been here. um but yeah, let's go a little bit more focused on the game. Before we do that, Brian, as a neutral, what are you kind of feeling after watching that game for these
That
two
was
fan
close.
bases? Yeah,
That was really, really close. And both sides had a lot to lose. Not just the season, but like the dignity of both like sides if the Bruins lost. Could you imagine the same thing happened back to back years? Blowing 3-1 leads, losing in game seven overtime. For you guys, obviously, like we see where you are now and how that's affected the team. I thought that could have went either way, and both teams played their hearts out that game seven, that specific night.
definitely agreed. Like I think that was the first game of the series where both teams gave their best effort, which is crazy. We're 7 games into it, and yeah,
Yeah.
that felt like every single player on either team should have. Obviously, some performed better than others. Let's rewind a bit to before the game even started, where we start getting whispers about Joseph Wall's availability for the game. He obviously ends up not being able to start it. The speculation is it might have been an injury that came on the last second goal the Bruins scored in game six. People were pointing to right knee. We don't know. We don't have confirmation, but definitely it's injury that kept him out. So, Dave, those whispers come through, and then we get the news that he's not playing. He's not even backing up. What are your
Do
immediate thoughts there?
do you want my play-by-play of where I was when, like, start to finish of
Yeah, sure.
so full disclosure, I went to a bar in Toronto last night. We started getting like the rumbling started happening. I don't know how, like, I forget now which source I saw, if it was Paul Bissonnette first, like Biz Nasty first, or if I saw it through like Chris Johnston or I don't, or if it was somebody else sending me somebody else's, or maybe Nick Kiprios actually is the tweet that I saw as well. Dude, I'm literally like, we were in the Uber. It's like 2 hours before game time, because it was like, it must have been like almost not even, it wasn't even 6 yet, because we're in the Uber. We were gonna get to the bar for 6, and like the rumbling started happening. So we get the first thing where it's like, maybe no wall, maybe no wall, and I'm just like, I'm on Twitter and I'm like doom scrolling for 20 minutes trying to find some answer that's just that in my head. I'm like, I know this is not going to be answered until it is legitimately like 7:55 and they're on the ice for the pregame skate, right? Like, and I wasn't wrong. Like, we get to the bar, we order food, and like, dude, I couldn't even like, okay, I ate something before, but take this into account. I like food, and I didn't eat any food. Like, we ordered plenty of different things, and I was like, I literally am too nervous. I'm doom scrolling. I I physically can't eat. Like, eating might actually make me like sick, basically, just before the game starts. And yeah, and we get the confirmation. It legitimately was. I don't know if you saw something just before, but for us in the bar, it was pre-game skate. We see 35 stepping onto the ice, and there was clearly a noticeable increase in the tension in the bar. Like, whatever tension that they're walking into the bar, there was an increase in tension. You could kind of feel it, because you would walk past tables and you would just see dudes like in their Leaf jerseys, just like doing this basically, right? It's like, yeah, yeah, no, I get it. I get it 100%. And then to see Sammy come out, it's like, wow, some of our biggest fears were just realized, right? Like, that's what it was. And it's after the game, like, this today, in hindsight, should we have been that worried about Sammy? Maybe. Did Sammy do his best to, at the very least, give the Leafs a chance to win? In hindsight, yes. Like, I think everybody was expecting that Sammy that got yanked after, what was it, after in game 4. Like, a lot of people were expecting that. I was like, I've seen Sammy have really good bounce back games. So in the back of my head, I was like, maybe, maybe maybe something would happen. And for the most part, I think Sammy did his
He
part as best he could.
he was excellent, and in another world, he he could have been the difference maker to take you over the top that specific game, but that's just not how it happened.
So
But he
I've
I'm
was
seen
in,
people pick apart both of the goals that
yeah.
the Bruins scored on us. I mean,
Like,
okay,
listen, I could be
but
I'm in two minds about it. I think he was both the game saver and also the game loser. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're gonna get caught up in the minutia, but at the end of the day, if he played maybe like a 95% great game, the only problem is that the 5% is where the Leafs lost the
yeah.
game, and it
And
does.
Swayman played a 99%
Yeah,
game,
yeah,
right?
that's another thing too. And also, like, it's also not unfair to maybe even ask for more from him. Is
Yeah,
that unfair? I don't think it's unfair for as good as he was.
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the reality is, the Leafs didn't lose this series in Game 7, right? They
Yeah.
lost this series in the first 4 games. but on last night, that is obviously the freshest stuff. Outside of Sammy, um, I don't know. I feel as proud as you can be about the team's effort as a whole. At least when it comes to game sevens, for sure. I think that's the tightest game seven we've ever played. I think it's the most comfortable we've looked in a game seven ever. Um, these are moral victories because it's not an actual victory. Um, William Nylander showed himself to be a big game player again. We had Austin Matthews re-enter the lineup. Didn't even mention that. He was inserted on the third line, just kind of plugged and played for Robertson in that spot. Um, I thought he looked fine. I thought he looked, yeah, like pedestrian. He looked like an Austin Matthews that was not
Hurt.
100%,
Yep.
which is we saw. Like he had the great assist on the Nylander goal with half the third period left to go. You're not getting that from a Robertson or whoever you're inserting in the lineup instead of him. So you take what you can get there. But yeah, obviously there's tons of excuses that could be drawn up. And we talked about it, I think, 2 episodes ago, just the Willie stuff, the Austin injuries, the crappy goaltending to start from Sammy. But really, nobody's making excuses for this team, and we want change going forward. The question is, how much change? Um, I think everybody is kind of pointing at Mitch. I think it's curious to note that he did not have a post game availability, as far as I've seen last night. JT spoke, Austin spoke, Willie spoke. Unless I didn't see him, I don't think Mitch spoke last night.
I didn't see
Um,
any quotes, if I'm being honest. Is that telling?
I don't know. I don't know. Sheldon, you talked about it. You mentioned that empty words from basically everyone in the post game. I thought Sheldon Keefe, honestly, I thought his quotes were the most telling and the most revealing, the most honest, the least cliche. And
Do you have the quote?
I can there's I'm saying more just from his entire post game. He had one
There,
quote that is. Do you have quotes there?
there was one that he referred to the team like as a third person. It was like,
That's
what was it? It's
yeah,
like when teams face the Leafs in Game 7, they set themselves up so that the Leafs beat themselves. And when you refer to like your team
yeah.
separate from you as an entity instead of saying us, kind of hints that he might have gotten sacked right after. He might have gotten the text. I
I
don't.
Yeah, I
Maybe I'm
don't
just
think
reading
anything
into
was
it,
made
but
official or anything. I think just that he knows he's a bit of a dead man walking. Because there was another one too where they were talking. He unprompted brought up. It was a question about the core, and the question I think was basically just, "Do you think this core can win?" And he first tiptoed around that and answered it in a roundabout way. He never really addressed those core four players that we know everyone's talking about. He kind of said, "Listen, this year there was the core, but there was also a second group." And he said there's a group of younger guys, and that maybe there's a bit of a disconnect in terms of age between the core four and these younger guys, but they're coming and that they're part of the reason he thinks they can win. And once again, he used that third person kind of speech, they, this team. So it was weird. The phrasing definitely leads you to believe that he understands what could be happening. Um, Dave, you have anything on any thoughts on those quotes or anything there?
get out of town, I guess. Sorry, I have no patience for this anymore. The quote about the uh it's what is it was it not literally like quite literally the quote, every team seemingly sets themselves up to make the Leafs beat the Leafs, like make the Leafs beat themselves. Is that not
Yeah,
what we've been saying for numerous years? Like if this is
yeah,
any
and I
other
think it's
if
like,
this is any
who
other
does that
team,
fall on?
yeah, obviously,
Yeah,
it's on him. Like
just a direct quote from Sarah Sivian here. When teams play the Leafs, they set up the game for the Leafs to beat themselves. That's the direct quote.
sorry, Sheldon. That's your job. That's what you get paid to
Yeah.
figure out. But here's the thing. We could say that all we want. Nobody's figured it out. It's been almost 60 years. Nobody's figured it out. I don't,
What is going to cost Keith his job, Dave? What specific things can we point to? The power play
man.
this series.
Man, run out the
Um,
laundry list here. Has
yeah,
I have a question. Has any Maple Leaf coach out coach, like, sorry, at least since let's say since 2017, the Matthews era, has have we had a coach who is out coached another like the other side's coach?
I would say
Did Sheldon Keefe out coach John Cooper in game 6? Sorry,
no.
in
I think
last year?
I think you can make an argument either way, but the fact that it's an argument either way, I'm gonna lean no. And
It's
I
like
think most people thought that the Leafs weren't the better team in that series. Like they're the better team on paper. Tampa carried play more often
yeah,
last year. We still had the
100%.
victory, but yeah, this year, dude, I could honestly like I don't know. Maybe I just sound like an apologist. I don't know, but I actually thought that maybe it has less to do with Sheldon Keefe being great coaching wise, but I thought like Jim Montgomery wasn't great either. He made a lot of questionable moves. A lot of what he said in the press
Again,
was different.
the
So
Leafs, like other teams, just set up for the Leafs to just beat themselves. I think Jim Montgomery went in standby mode for games 5, 6, and 7. And, they bent, but they didn't break, right? Like the damage was already done to the team. Simple as that.
I I think the Leafs. I don't know if the Leafs come back down from 3-1 for every other coach that you could put into that spot as Keefe. I think in some respects it's because they knew Keefe's job was on the line. So it's different when you're playing for a coach that has his job hanging in the balance. Um, and I said this last episode too. I think Sheldon Keefe squeezed out every last bit of lemon juice of that blue line. It's not a very talented blue line. It's not a very mobile blue line. It's not a blue line with much offense. He recognized all those and said we need to play a game that's fitted for the personnel we have. And I thought they played it to a T in the final 3 games. And I don't know if every coach can get you that. So I do think he's gonna get fired. I think he sounds like he knows he's gonna get fired. But I at least have the thought in the back of my mind that in a year from now we could look back and say we missed certain things about Sheldon Keefe. Obviously, every coach has good and bad. We could definitely look back and say the good of X coach definitely outweighs the good of Sheldon Keefe. But I wonder how much of Sheldon Keefe's stuff we might be taking for granted. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side, but there could be patches of the lawn that are a little bit yellow that we didn't foresee. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, I think you do make a great point there, like about the grass being greener. There, like again, I'll bring it back to the fact, like I'll bring it back to the point when Sheldon Keefe was hired, he was promised as as the next coming, where the grass was greener, right? He had just come off of a AHL championship with um then GM at the time, Dubas, right? They basically grew up together for all intents and purposes, and he was promised as being the guy to bring in like a fresh set of eyes to this team, somebody who's younger, somebody who, like I said, just won something that the Leafs haven't done at all. So there was hope. There was genuine hope, and I don't know when did everything start turning sour for Sheldon Keefe? Was it when they lost to the Zamboni driver that season? Was it when they got mauled in against Columbus? I say mauled. They had a couple good games, but then that final game was just they just got suffocated. Not even mauled. They got suffocated. That's what they did. They got suffocated by Columbus. When was it when he got suffocated by Montreal up 3-1 and then 3-2 and then 3-3 and then, going down 4-1 like losing the series? I don't know. Was it when they got
And honestly,
suffocated by the Tampa Bay Lightning in round 1 in 2022? I don't know.
it's actually crazy that it really might be losing to the Zamboni driver that gave us our first idea of, oh, maybe this won't work. when you think about it, it basically, yeah, it's like you said, there hasn't been a series where you came out of it feeling great about Sheldon Keefe, which is crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and he's won a series.
Outside of the first, yeah, outside of the first one, the Columbus one, because you just say whoop de doo pandemic season, Tyson Berry and Cody Ceci on your blue line, crap like that. Um, yeah,
This one might be the
but
best.
yeah, no,
This
that's wrong. I honestly do think so. Like I said, I think Montgomery wasn't like it's not like this was stellar coaching on either side, and so in
Yeah.
that respect, I thought it was very very close. Um, we're definitely obviously going to look back
See,
in
so
hindsight and
now,
say Jim
yeah,
Montgomery calling out Pasta looks like a goddamn like
yeah.
Mona
Look,
Lisa.
well, he knows when to motivate. But that's the
I
thing.
don't I don't want to give him credit for that.
Ah,
I
yeah,
don't. What did he do there? What did he
yeah. He
do?
called out his 50 goal
We
scorer.
can
Congrats.
we can
Yeah.
at
No,
least
I know what
say
you mean.
I know, but so at the same time, it's like, would you see Sheldon do that? Like, would he say we need more out of Mitch?
No, because Sheldon, the problem with Sheldon was then if he were to do something, and this is, I don't even know if this is going to be laid at the feet of Keith or if this is just the whole franchise,
The
this
culture stuff that we
company,
talk back about all the time.
this is like this is a company. Like let's not beat around the bush here. The Maple Leafs are a company. They are a product. And when you have one piece of your product going at another piece of your product in the press by calling them out, it doesn't look good for investors and shareholders and that type of stuff. So I'm not surprised that like the whole company sided with the 3 to 4 guys that are, bringing in the most money as compared to the guy who's supposed to be kind of reeling them in. So if Sheldon wouldn't have had free reign to even say something like that, if he did, he probably would have been canned on the spot and Guy Boucher would have been the head coach for the rest of the series, right?
Yeah, not to relitigate, but like we saw what happens when Keith calls them out after that Arizona game, where he says our best guys weren't our best guys, and he has to claw those comments back, whether that's on
Yeah.
his own volition or if that's a message from higher up. We don't have to relitigate the whole thing, but yeah. So I guess in that respect, it's nothing that Montgomery did with that quote, but it's the juxtaposition of Montgomery saying that and knowing that we couldn't even get that same quote from Keith.
You're right.
And then Pasta in the post game. It's a lot easier to say this when you're the overtime hero. But he's like, I would have said the same thing if I was the coach. Sure, you would, because look at you
I don't
now.
know.
But
I feel
right,
I feel like
that's
I feel like Pasta's more on the, like, regardless of outcome, if that question's posed in the positive or the negative light, you know what I mean? I still think we kind of get the same answer from Pasta. I just feel like he's that type of guy. There's not many guys
yeah,
that would be able to sit up there and say something like that, but I feel like he is that type of guy. But that is a very good point that you made though. Like it definitely, like, to whom the victor belongs the spoils, right? Like that is, in hindsight, we're
yeah,
gonna look back at this series in 5 years, and me and you could be sitting here taking the moral victories away, but the moral victories, they come and go for maybe 24 hours,
yeah.
max
They wash
48
away very
hours,
quick.
very, very quickly. You know what people remember? People remember the heroes, the victors,
The
right?
result, yeah.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
what
my,
do they say? History's written by the victors. It's not written by the people that lost, right?
yeah. So, like all yesterday, I was watching the game with my dad and I had other family over too. And my dad basically from shift one is just like, why the hell do they have Austin on the third line? He's a 69 goal scorer. Like, get him in the top six, whatever. I'm like, Dad, he's not 100%. Like, and they want to keep the two lines together. And then, like, as soon as the Leafs lose, that's his immediate excuse. That's in hindsight, right? And it's like if they win the game, we're like
That's a
applauding
great
that as an
decision. Yeah,
incredible, right? So it's
100%.
all
I
just
mean,
the perspective of the result with that
I
one.
didn't hate that decision, but I think
Me
we also
neither.
had I don't know if you said the same thing, with another mutual friend of ours suggested putting, um, it would have been a line
JT.
of Nyes. Yeah, it would have been a Nyes,
Oh, okay.
Matthews, Nylander
Nylander.
line.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have hated that at all. If you
No, me
drop
neither.
JT down to that, like, you just switch JT and Matthews,
The assumption though would have to like that comes with the assumption that Austin could play top 6 minutes and play top six quality. And I think after watching Game 7, you could at least have the conversation of was that the case or was that not the case? Right?
I think going in and coming out of that game, I think it's game 7. Sorry, tough it up. Um, you're making $13 million. I know you don't get paid for the playoffs, but you get paid for the playoffs. You know what I mean? You don't get paid for the playoffs, but he does get paid to perform in the playoffs. And if you're the 69 goal scorer and you can't shoulder a bit more of the load, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? You are the highest paid player in the league. Currently, the highest paid player in the league.
I don't
I
hate.
I don't like listen, I want to feel sympathetic. I really do. But these guys are in leagues, they are in tax brackets that are unfathomable to the three of us. Like, I'm
Dave,
sorry.
there's an alternate universe right now. Legitimately, if the coin hits tails instead of heads, that exact moment that we're talking about Monty being on the hot seat and we're fucking ripping on Pasternak or McAvoy or whatever, it was close. It could
No,
have went either way.
it was the problem, Brian,
If
though, that I always have is that it's always the other team just put in that extra little emphasis. And
yeah.
it just seemingly never feels like it's the Leafs, and it seemingly never comes from I'm not even gonna single out I'm gonna single out two guys here in particular, and it's Matthews and Marner. Matthews, I think, had a far better game than Marner did. I think can we all agree that even at 50%, Matthews still probably had a better game
Yeah,
than Marner
no, Mitch
did?
wasn't very visible last night. Didn't
Yeah.
factor into much of anything. I see. I think on this one too, and I don't want to make it seem like every single thing we talk about can be looked at this way, but with Austin again, if the Leafs pull up the W last night, are we not looking at it like what a heroic effort from
Yeah.
Matthews to
Oh,
gut it out
100%.
and come back and to have that assist, and what a warrior he is for like sticking it through it, right? So that's another one where it's like the lens that you look through it, whether it's a W or an L, really, really, really changes the perspective that you consider him through, right? Well, let's move on, Brian. I want to quickly get your thoughts on Keefe from like a neutral perspective. Do you think he went toe to toe with Montgomery as a coach in this series? Do you think he's justified to be fired? What are your thoughts on Keefe as a coach?
I think that if you guys dropped him, I I wouldn't be surprised. I think that it's time. It's been what 4 or 5 years now with him. If he's not the guy, he's not the guy. Um, Sometimes a personnel change is good. I don't love him as a coach. I think he's like maybe a 12 to 17 if you're ranking coaches across the league. But I think that he has a connection with your team. I think that he actually cares, which is something that you can't say about a lot of coaches across the league and as a whole. And I think that that's going to be hard to replace. But maybe that's not what you guys need. Maybe you guys need someone to come in cold, someone fresh to just change things up. I don't know who that guy is, but I don't know. If you guys ran it back with Keith, I wouldn't hate it.
Okay, let's let's flip the let's flip this around for a second. And before we look forward a bit, I mean, we are kind of going to look forward with this too. Can you take out any positives from this series? I know we
Oh,
highlighted a couple players
there's
last night,
yeah,
right? There is stuff
there
that
is
you saw in
positives.
this series that you can say,
Mhm.
"Huh, that looks
Okay,
good."
so
What's on that list?
I've got
Nice.
two big ones in mind, and they're one of them is actual players, and then one of them is management. So my players, I listen, I said it from I don't know, for some reason at the beginning of the season, it was just screaming out to me. I was like, Joseph Wall needs to be the starting goaltender for this team. Like, I think now it's officially time. It does give me a lot of worry though that now it's kind of seems like two injuries in the same season. I'm really hoping and praying that's just maybe it's just one off. The Leafs do have the best medical staff in the league, so maybe I don't know. I'm hoping for a miracle in that regard. And number 2 is Matthew Nyes, the 21-year-old kid who is not even a playoff rookie. Like this is his second full playoffs with this team, and both playoffs he was dynamic. He looks to be the real deal, kind of like the antidote for whatever has been ailing this Maple Leaf team over the past, I don't know, 60 years. Let's At least since in the Matthews era, he looks to be like the ailment. That's what it is. And my second thing is, I came into the season very low on Brad Treliving and very skeptical of what he would do. And even with the moves that he did make, I was very skeptical. Brad
And he also
Treliving's
didn't give as much confidence. I don't think you can
yeah,
tell me if
he
you
didn't
disagree. Like
instill
in
any
his
confidence. Yes,
yeah, in
100%.
his press conferences, they were pretty bland. They
Yes,
were
they were.
pretty pedestrian once
Yeah,
again, right? Like
very,
yeah,
very like vanilla. Yeah, no, 100%.
yeah.
And he is slowly turning me into somebody who I'm not gonna sit here and defend Brad Living with my life, but he is slowly starting to turn me into a believer. I can see the vision, some sort of vision of playoff hockey in the moves that he made with Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. And maybe they didn't have the greatest impact like a lot of people. I thought Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi were genuinely going to have fantastic playoffs, and they had good playoffs, which is fine. Whatever. You still lost. Go shit in your hat. I don't care. But I thought that the like all the moves, even the deadline moves, like dude, getting Connor Dewar, who was awesome. Joel Edmondson was pretty good. Ilya Labushkin, wow, were we down on that trade? We didn't even get to talk
I was
about it
very
because we
done.
were in Florida.
Yeah.
Man, he had, if that was, maybe his best hockey of his NHL career, you know, awesome. Like, I'm
He's
glad
played
at
all of
least,
his best hockey in the NHL as a
yeah.
Maple Leaf, right?
And he's played all of it, like, well, I was going to say in the playoffs, but I remember that Tampa series. I don't know if he was fantastic, like in
He's
that
fine.
series, but he
He's
was
fine. He was really good this year.
he was
Yeah.
outstanding, I would say. I would go as far as
Yeah.
to say as outstanding. Yeah, sure. There's a couple
How about the trade
misses.
deadline moves that he made in terms of extensions too, right? Like Simon
Yeah.
Benoit. What a goddamn steal that contract looks like after
Hmm.
this series. I
And
said it
Bobby
last night.
McDowell.
I think Bob McDowell, it sucks that we didn't get him in this series, but I think
Yeah.
everyone feels good about that contract, obviously. Simon Benoit, I think, is everything that we ever expected out of Justin Hall,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's
I
interesting
would
that
say
I bet
slightly less mobile though. Like I think Justin
sure,
Hall was
sure.
maybe a bit more mobile.
Maybe a little bit of foot speed, yeah, a little bit,
Yeah.
but like, are you missing that right now?
No,
No,
not at
right?
all.
So, and it's funny because I wonder if you took like Brad and Kyle and asked them like describe these two players, like you get a very similar description, and yet if you pull the fan base, you'll get a very different answer in terms of
I
who they would prefer, right?
I would also go as far as to say if you line up Dubas's moves from I don't know maybe his first couple years and the moves that Brad made this year and you give them to the other GM and you'd be like would you make this move yes or no and it's like or would you bring this player in yes or no I'm very curious to see how many yeses and nos would be from like either side like would
Yeah,
Brad bring in like somebody like Pierre Engvall and would Kyle bring in somebody I don't know bring somebody like Joel Edmondson
Edmondson.
or Ryan
yeah,
Reeves is probably the perfect example in this
yeah.
situation, right?
So Pierre Engvall is like he's our draft pick. So like you see that through just because like he's like you own him, right?
Yeah.
But like maybe he gets a shorter leash, maybe he's traded, right? Like
Or
we
maybe
know
you
that Kyle
don't
Dubas was
pick
a believer.
yeah, or maybe you don't pick Pierre Engvall and you pick somebody else in more of a mold that like I don't even know what
Yeah,
Brad's we haven't even seen a Brad draft yet, so like we can't even
yeah,
really
no.
speak about that. I don't know why.
We've looked back on it. I remember looking back on his like draft record, like when we first hired him, and
Yeah, not
it was
good.
like mixed results.
Not good.
Right? It was like
No, it's it's
so.
it's
Let's
it was worse than mid. Let's put
yeah.
it
So
there.
we gotta see. We'll see because we know he cooked a little bit this
Yeah.
past draft. Anyways, okay. So we've got Wall. I agree. Like definitely optimism there in terms of what he can contribute when he's healthy. That was
Yep.
the other takeaway,
That's
right?
the
It's
big
like you need
thing.
the
Yeah.
guy. He's great when he's available. We need him to be available more. Um, Nyes, I think like we can't look at him as the savior. Because I think he's gonna be an outer core guy, right? Like vital to team success. But he'll be properly placed behind guys like Matthews and Nylander in terms of importance, right? He turned it on, I think, even mid-series here too, because I don't think he looked great in the first couple games. And then really when he just showed up is when he started yapping at Pasta saying, go at me. And then everything
Yeah.
from there has just been a different player. We saw a lot of the same things that we saw last year in the playoffs because he was dynamite last year. And then honestly, this season wasn't the greatest from him. Maybe the expectations were a bit high, but I think he ends up with roughly like 30 points, 12 goals,
He's
something like that.
It's a rookie season, man. Like
It's a rookie
that's
season, but like our right, like maybe our expectations were out of whack.
yeah, probably.
And so we
he's
should
gonna
probably
be an
keep ourselves
outscorer.
realistic here. Yeah, I've heard the Chris Kreider comparable. The difference with Knives is he's more hands than he is like a deflection artist. So I struggle in the moment to come up with the direct comparable, but because
Like
even Kalorn's more
He,
rough around the edges too. Like
he
Knives is a polished
I
player
mean like a third,
in
second
terms of the
liner
ranking order.
in
Yeah,
in regular season, but when that day comes in the playoffs, he's the guy.
yeah,
He
yeah.
is
we
your
see.
best
Yeah,
performer for that
he
night.
he has another gear on Domi and Bertuzzi. Do we want to see 1, 2, 0 of them back?
Um
It feels
Gotta try
impossible
to
to
get
like
one.
bring back both. Yeah, so it
I
feels
I
impossible to bring back
think
both. Who are you choosing?
I think we're in the same boat here. I just think just for the fact that Tyler Bertuzzi is technically more like higher end than Max Domi is. I think Domi is the realistic. I don't think you get both. I don't think you want to maybe get both either. I think it's
I just don't think it's
I
possible
think
really
it's
with the guy. It's
fine.
not.
I think it's fine. I like Tyler Bertuzzi. I think it's fine if you cut loose from him, but I think you definitely need to retain uh, just for just the passion that Max Domi brings alone is enough to want me to give him like an 8-year deal, 10-year
Yeah,
deal, 100-year deal, like just to stay. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
I said this last night. I think Domi showed up in every single game, including
yeah,
our losses. That was a guy who cared every single game. And we know in game
dude,
one, maybe he cared a little bit too much,
yeah,
but I'll take that. And listen, maybe this is tough coming from a Leaf fan, a guy who cares too much because we've seen like suspensions from Kadri and Bunting, and there was worries about that after game one, honestly. But no, that guy showed every single game that he shows up in the playoffs. 3 game 7 goals. That was a graphic that they flashed
yeah.
for Max Domi, two with Carolina against Boston. So he's the guy they definitely want to keep. I agree with that. Okay, we'll get into a little bit more stuff. We're gonna take a quick break. Okay, we're back. We just finished talking about like Domi and Bertuzzi. Can you retain both of them? None of them. One of them. I think we agree. One of them is probably what's gonna end up happening, and it's probably Domi just because it feels like Bert I don't know if his play has priced him out of the Leafs, but for whatever reason, he just has more inherent value. At least that's the perception.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I think on balance in the series, they both played pretty similarly in terms of performance. But I'm giving the edge to Domi. He plays center. We saw he can win a faceoff in a couple of these games. Um, we didn't like see too many defensive gaffes from him. He stepped up on both ends of the ice.
He
So I think we value him a bit more.
he looked absolutely devastated with that loss for Bertuzzi. I don't know if you guys saw like the camera panned him, he was just looking down when Pasternak scored. Felt bad for the guy. He was
Well, I mean,
definitely
it's back-to-back years now, right? Like he
And
was
the
on
crazy
the
oh
thing is this is all
right.
he knows though too. Like last year was his first ever playoffs,
yeah.
right? So he's
Hmm.
only
Right.
been in 2 series and they've both
Both
been
heartbreakers.
devastating,
Heartbreaking
right?
losses, yeah.
Yeah. Let's actually touch on a couple of the other like free agents and kind of give our idea if we want to retain them. We mentioned Labushkin Edmondson. I think this is another pairing where you're
It's a
like,
pick one.
maybe we keep. Yeah, it's a pick one, and it's a tough pick one. I probably lean Edmondson, but I'm not worried if they were to pick like Labushkin instead because he's cheaper, right? I
And
think
he's
that's what I think
right-handed.
it comes down to. He's right-handed. He's cheaper. I actually don't think he's younger. I think they're actually like the same age. Um, yeah.
I'm
So
not even
I'm
honestly, I'm not even looking at age. I just consider them
yeah.
30 plus. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're
So I know Edmondson for sure is 30 on the dot, and you would think he's like 33,
I
to be
think
honest.
Bush might be younger, but slightly. Like if it's anything, it's like 28 or 29. And it's legitimately that's like splitting hairs. Like
Yeah.
29
Yeah.
is basically 30 and 30 is basically like early, like you're in your late 20s still. I don't know.
So
Can't really relate because we're in our early 20s, I guess we could say. But
Labushkin is
yeah,
30. I just looked
I
at he is 30.
I feel like that one's another kind of like pick 'em situation. I'm in the same boat as you, but I also think that Bush will be the one take like
I'm okay with
kept
that. Yeah.
over, which is fine. Then
It's I
who do
think
you
it's
have
similar to
next?
Domi and Burt, just from the idea that it feels like Edmondson. It feels like if you put both guys on the open market,
Yeah.
Edmondson's going to get more interest, and so the results weren't different enough where you feel like you've got to overpay for Edmondson. You probably just take Labushka. I think that's what
Mhm.
like
I think so
I'm
too.
putting their money is anywhere I think from on the very very low end like 1.75 to like 2.75. I think that's the range of money you're looking at. Luke Shen got 2.75 last year, so I could see someone paying that for either guy. It's just going to come down to what teams are interested, how much demand is there for, and you just take whoever has less demand. Honestly, I think, and even
Yeah.
if they both leave, like they're replaceable. They're
Yeah.
around the edges of the
Yeah. Oh,
roster.
100%.
Let's look at Sammy. What do you do
Yeah.
with Sammy? Is there a world
Um
where you can bring him back?
No,
I don't know if there
there
is.
isn't. So now I definitely changed my tune a little bit on Sammy. Game 4, I was like, all right, get ready to learn Russian again, buddy. Like you're heading back to the KHL. Like I genuinely thought like there's no option for you to be an NHL goaltender anymore. There was the thing about Sammy is that he was very, very bad this season. He was very, very good this season. And then when times got tough, he just, it looked like he started to collapse. This is before the game. After the game,
Yeah,
I can at least say there will be a team looking for goaltending help that will throw money at Ilya Samsonov, and it shouldn't be the Toronto Maple Leafs. It definitely should not be. And I think that's fine. I know that it's very slim pickings on the open market right now, but you kind of just like have to make make do basically.
yeah. The
Maybe
goaltending market isn't very deep at all this summer.
yeah.
Like he's
Is
gonna
he
end up being like
probably?
top three, top five goalie available.
I was just about to say, is he probably the top goaltender available? Like,
Uh, off the top of my head, I think some of the names are like Cam Talbot, Scott Wedgwood, and those are like Wedgwood's a backup.
yeah,
Talbot had like a Samsonov season, up
yeah.
and down, and he's like 39. Yeah, maybe he's higher than even up. Maybe he is number one. He might be the number
I
one
think
guy,
just
honestly.
like age,
Right?
just age and like the not even like I would even say resume, but like his so like his scouting report, you probably take him over somebody like Cam Talbot. Like I don't know, Scott Wedgwood's another thing too.
Yeah,
But that's what I mean. Like you're genuinely splitting hairs
yeah.
at that point.
I think
Um,
money for him is looking at like so he's coming off of a deal that paid him I think just under 3.5.
and
Like
that's
he can't get
arbitration as
more.
well. Yeah,
Yeah, and he can't. So he's not gonna get more than that. Like I think
probably
his
not.
deal comes in very like similar,
3?
probably like three flat. Yeah, and I think it's a 1 or 2 year deal, and
Yeah.
I think it should be a team that like they're adding him as gravy. You know what I mean?
Yes,
They
I
are right.
that was my next point was that he also can't like a team can't sign him in hopes of him being the number one, which is how he was signed to the Leafs, right? We all forget like
Yes, and
he
like
was
we
what
had two guys who are like
that's what I mean.
two question marks.
I think he needs a platoon more than anything. You know what I mean? I think if I'm being honest, he thrives more in a situation where he feels like he has to outplay his other thing. If he
Yeah.
starts getting too comfortable and he's like, he's kind
I'm
of
the
left
starter.
alone,
It's my nights. Yeah.
yeah, that's when he starts to struggle
Yeah.
because perfect example in these playoffs, he played himself back into the playoff spot with Wall not even kind of
Yeah.
being an afterthought until game 4 where they were kind of like, well, let's throw the kid in and see how he does, right? And you look at the
Yeah.
results between the two of them and they're starkly different until game
I'm,
7
I'm
where
trying to think of what team has like he needs a goaltender that's like gets injured often. I was gonna say like Carolina with Freddie Anderson, but they have Kochetkov, like so they don't need him.
yeah.
But yeah, like he needs to be the 1B to a team with a goalie who's pretty good, but isn't always available, right? And then that's where he works. That's where he does his best work.
I, e-
Brian, you
but
want
e-
Samsonov back?
even still, like
I'm good.
I was just about to say, even joining a team like with a pretty reliable, like a pretty stable,
Yeah.
reliable goaltender. I don't even know. Like I don't know why I
I
just
was gonna say
thought
like
like
Anaheim.
Tampa.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Tampa?
dude, he's gonna get lit up if he goes to Anaheim. Like
Yeah, I
he
agree. Like
will,
they got no defense. I'm just
dude.
thinking. I'm thinking of goalies who are
Honestly,
getting injured,
send
and
him to
Gibson is one.
Utah. Send him to Utah with
I feel like
Vejmelka.
I feel like every time we talk about where should a player go, we keep saying Utah. Like it's
Um,
it's like we're saying send him to the range, send him to Utah.
Yeah, send him to Utah. But like playing alongside Karel Vejmelka, maybe like giving them like 40-40 basically, or maybe 45
They have
35.
Ingram though too, right? That's the other, like
Yeah, well,
they might have a crowded
Connor
net.
Ingram
Yeah.
can
Anyways,
go
way
to
too
the
much
moon.
Sam stuff. Talk. Let's keep it
Let's go
Leafs.
to the
Who's left? I think
well, we got
honestly,
Nick
free agency
Robertson.
wise.
Uh
So okay, these are our
that was
RFAs.
our RFAs,
Okay,
yeah.
let's get into potential trade talk and let's talk about let's work from I don't know. Do you want to work from most important or least important up?
Let's go least important first.
Okay, I'll throw some names into the ring that you mentioned, like Robertson.
Yeah.
Is Leafs Nation done with him, or the Leafs
Yeah.
organization done with
I
him?
I would
I
100% take a chance at him.
I I
You
would
would say, yeah. I mean,
I think so too. I just don't think that there's a spot. You know where his spot is? If I'm
Second
being
line right
honest,
wing.
it is Mitch Marner's spot,
Yeah,
right?
he needs top
he,
6 minutes.
that's like like I can't
That's
go
what
from
and
I
there
that's
to
what I'm
know.
there,
saying. Like
right? That's yeah, yeah. That's where
nobody
he
is
needs to
doing
play.
that,
I
but
get what
that
you're
is where
saying.
he has
Yeah,
to play. And you know what? He's gonna go to a team. I'll stand on
yeah.
this right now, and I'll say it in my prediction for next year. He's gonna go to a team. He's not gonna be on I don't know where. Insert your team here. He's gonna go into somebody else's top 6 and score 25 minimum.
We
I'll say
don't
20
have
minimum, 45 points, something like that.
we there's a chance we don't have a second line right winger next season
Yeah,
because
like the
yeah,
Caps
like
could use somebody
Yeah,
like him, right? Like
I think his comp is Owen Tippett is his comp. That's high praise because like
it's a
Owen
pretty
Tippett's
good
turned himself
tip.
into like a really good player. I'm saying like Owen Tippett when he was traded from Florida to Philly.
Yeah.
People looked at Owen Tippett as an afterthought in the Claude Giroux deal. And he worked himself into the centerpiece of it, right? And I
Yep,
think
yep.
that's the blueprint you're looking at with Robertson if you're a team trying to trade for him. And I think the Leafs can survive without him. I think the experiment has run long enough. It's crazy. He's only 22 years old. Like we talk about like maybe he's like 24, 25. Time hasn't run out on his development really, but it feels like with the Leafs, he's been here since he was 18, and I think we've seen enough. Right?
he
Mm.
Could they use him next year? Like he'll be cheap. He's an RFA. Like
He
he's not getting more than he's getting less than 2 million. He's getting like
yeah.
1.5, 1.75 for a 1 or 2 year deal. Depending on
He
what you do, he might have a spot, but honestly, he might
here's the
not either.
thing though. He just seems like gravy on a team that and it's not even like it's like a different type of gravy to like what the type of gravy that the team needs. He's like cranberry sauce basically for this team. It's cranberry sauce, and
Yeah,
we're in May right now. Like nobody's eating cranberry sauce in May. They're having it in October, November for
yeah.
their Thanksgivings, right? That's what he seems. He seems just a bit out of place for this team. if you
He
get
needs to go to a
somebody,
cranberry team. He needs to go to a team that's still
yes,
growing, right? He
or a
screams good
team
player, bad team. You know
or
what
a
I mean?
team
Like,
that's in the mood for the cranberry sauce. We are
yeah,
full of cranberry sauce, basically,
yes,
is what
yes.
I'm trying to say. Like yeah, like listen, I like him as well. I I don't want to dislike anybody on this team. I've grown fond of everybody that plays on the Toronto Maple Leafs. But let's pull ourselves back, let's take all facts into consideration here. He kind of and you could see who was always the first man out of the lineup, basically. It wasn't Ryan Reeves most times. It wasn't Noah Gregor for a good part of the season. It was always Nick Robertson. They're just yeah, maybe another coach comes in and maybe he comes in and he puts
He,
his trust into Nick Robertson. I just think that's
I
a
think it could go
very
the other way. Like, I think it would be
unlikely.
like if a new coach came in, like we might never see, like he might be
Yes.
healthy
I
scratched
think it's more
almost
likely for that
completely.
situation to happen that you just said
Yeah,
as compared to somebody else coming in and being like, wow,
yeah.
look at this found money we
The
just found.
the
We just
the
got.
worst part is there's promise with that player. Like, I
No, I
can
know
totally
he's
Yeah,
understand.
scoring 30
yeah,
goals,
but
Brian.
there's not
Like
promise
there's
Yeah,
on in our
it's
situation.
just in your
I, I,
spot, it's just not gonna work.
yeah, I think you're happy with like a third round pick back for him, if I'm being honest.
I slam that
I
every day. Like,
but
that is
dude, 31 out of 32 teams should be slamming that every day because it's basically you're getting a
maybe I'm
free 25 goal scorer,
yeah
I think.
maybe I'm low on that value because okay, so now here's the logic I'll throw at you guys. If Pierre Anval gets a third, Nick Robertson should get I don't know he should get a little bit more, right?
But here's the
Because
thing, like
the difference is that he's 22.
he should get more, and then all another team's GM has to say is, but he was healthy scratched 40
Yeah,
games this year, right? He was a scratch for
yeah.
30 plus games. So
Didn't do
clearly
anything
you
in the
don't
playoffs.
he didn't do anything in the playoffs. He was healthy scratched in the playoffs, right? Like multiple times, few games.
I think we've
He
had this conversation like 3 years in a row now with this exact same player.
um
We listen. We saw the most we've ever seen out of him this year. Like, let's not get that twisted.
yeah,
He looked more comfortable as an NHLer this year.
yeah.
Um, but still, it's all the same weaknesses that we saw from the beginning. Small frame, easily battled off of pucks in the corners. He doesn't win those against a McAvoy or a Carlo, right? Um, not his fault. Like
Christian,
he's not that guy.
I have another question for you. Between
Yeah.
Nick Robertson, Ryan Reeves, and Noah Gregor, who has more trade value?
Trade value? No, it's Nick Robertson. Yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah.
three of them played half of the series.
Yeah.
They played the exact same amount of games. Like that,
Yeah.
that is why I think a third at this point, right? Like, what does Noah Gregor fetch in a trade? A fifth?
No, nothing. Nothing. Yeah, like a six. Like no.
Right?
Yeah.
And they played the exact same amount of games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a
I
third is quite literally like that is cranberry sauce. If we're gonna keep talking about
okay.
that reference, yeah.
Let's say let's throw it down. Let's say it's a high third because I keep looking at that end goal comp, and I'm like, you take Robertson over end goal every day if you're a team trading for someone. Let's say it's a high third, okay? In the 60s, the 70s, okay? There's that. The other guy is Timothy Liljegren. Where are we at
Yeah.
with Timothy Liljegren?
Oh,
This is one that I've actually been calling for. I called for
oh
this like
man.
in the summer
Did he
that I
had
think you should make this move.
He was
I'll
kind
be
of
honest,
not the best.
he had a I'm he had a really bad game seven. He
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 did
got all muscled by
that turnover in
JVR.
overtime.
Dude, not even just that. He got all muscled by JVR. I know for a fact it was once in game seven. He was out muscled by JVR on multiple occasions. I think it was six and seven. He was out muscled by James Van Riemsdyk. When you think of James Van Riemsdyk, sure, he's got a big frame, but do you think of JVR as Gronk? I
That
don't.
is one thing
I
like I learned like yo, he's actually like maybe improved his skating since he left, which is
so,
crazy.
yeah, it looks like he has quite a bit. Maybe that like all the time in Philly like
It's
did
like
him some good. I don't
but
no
like
idea,
I
but
I, uh, I cannot believe I'm remembering this. Like so he left us after
2013.
Boston won
No, he left us first round of
2018.
Boston, right? Like 2018, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think it was Shen.
So yeah, so I think he signed a. Did he sign like a 6-year deal with Philly at
It
7 mil?
was
Like he
5
got
or 6.
paid. He got goddamn paid.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think
I
like that.
mean,
Like he
but he was
played out a
also
whole other contract. Like
was he also
it's
not coming off another 30-goal season that year?
yeah, no, he had a career high. Like I think it was like 36. Like
Yes,
it
right?
was a great year. No, it was fantastic. But like I think more from like a time perspective, it's crazy how long it's been since like
He played out
JVR
another
has like
contract. Like
yeah,
he is
yeah.
honestly, dude, I think he might retire after this season is over. Like, I don't know.
I think
The
I from what I saw from him, he's got more in the tank.
yeah,
Anyways,
I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah,
we're getting
Timothy Liljegren cooked. Like
yeah.
he got sent to pasture. He's somebody genuinely who I think like get ready to start learning Russian, buddy, because
Ace. No. This is yeah, man. Maybe
I
Russian because he's going to a team with a lot of Russians on him. Brian, what's up?
I if you talk about Russians, like that's one guy I wouldn't also I would also want to take a swing at. Mind you, we have a lot of defensemen, a lot of young guys coming up, but I don't know. I think there's something
he's
there.
Listen,
he's
it's a lot of
got
the same stuff that we said about Robertson, like in terms of a team that should be looking for him. I really hope that if there's this, like, I really don't care too much about the World Championships, but if there's one player who could really benefit from a World Championships, I think it's Timothy Liljegren. I don't know if he'd
yeah.
even make the Sweden roster this year, but he could do himself some good in rehabilitating his game
See,
and kind of showcasing himself.
the difference between the comps between Robertson and Liljegren is that Liljegren has all the tools that the Leafs need. You know what I mean? We need somebody who's mobile, which I would argue Timothy Liljegren is. We need somebody who's right-handed, which is a commodity that not many teams have.
We need someone with a little bit of offense, which he had, I think,
Somebody with a
28
little bit
points
of
this year,
offense on the
career high.
on the back end
Yeah,
specifically, right? He
yeah.
has all three of those things. Like those are like genuine needs for the Leafs. And I think he's another one where it seems like it's between the ears. And also, I don't know, he kind of he plays a lot smaller than I think he is as well.
Yeah, and even on the mobile stuff, we just talked about getting out for a puck by JVR. Like I don't know where that mobility goes in the playoffs, and we see him sometimes fall out of nowhere, right? Like I don't know,
Yeah.
he's a mobile guy, but I wouldn't call him a smooth skater, right? Like it's I don't know,
Well,
he's a
I think it's
conundrum.
more mobile than 4 out of the 6 D that the
Yeah,
Leafs have, right?
yeah.
Like
So it's just relative to like
the
sure when you're
team.
around a bunch of slugs, you're gonna look at least like a rabbit. I
Like
don't
a
know, like
like a race car. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah. So with him, I think so. Sandine Fitch was that late first. I think you can't say that Liljegren's fetching you the same thing.
Oh, he'll
I
get you a
think you're
third.
looking at a. I think you're looking at a
Second,
low
third.
second to third.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
low
disagree with
second.
that one either.
Okay, so we got those two. I'm gonna throw in a name that I don't know how I don't think it's really been considered at all, and it might be tough because I'm gonna double check this. I think he has a little bit of trade protection. Like I know he has some. Let me just see what it is here. Okay, this player has a 10-team no trade list. This
That's
player, when he
Canada.
joined the Leafs, was one of my favorites in his first year. I still really like him. He scored in
Camp.
this series. It's David Camp and his new contract. So if we actually have to look at like some of the bad Brad tree living decisions, this might be one of them.
That's one of them.
That
Yeah.
extension, 2.4 million for the next actually no, sorry, it's 2.1 million for the next 2 years after this one. Yeah, with the 10-team no trade. I think if you're looking to take really, really big swings outside of trading the core four, that 2.4 million all of a sudden looks like really, really valuable in terms of cap space. I don't know what you can get back for David Camp. He's probably like what I would look for is to attach Camp to either Robertson or Liljegren into trade and take back either less or like if it's like Liljegren and David Camp to San Jose. San Jose does not want David Camp. I'm trying to think of a team that wants both of those
No,
guys, but like you get back a third flat, right? Because they're eating some money, something like that. Some
it's
team could use a
exactly
David Camp.
it's exactly the Klim Kostin Yamamoto trade that Edmonton made last year. Just ship
What?
out Klim Kostin and Yamamoto to Detroit for like a third or a fourth.
Yeah,
It's exactly the
I
same
would do
trade.
that. If I can get a third
Yeah,
for David Camp, I do that because, like I said, I think that cap space for some of the moves that you're going to want to look to make, I think it's very, very, very valuable. And I think we've seen is I think we have at least one David Camp replacement in the lineup, maybe two. Connor Dewar, I think there's a lot of the things like David Camp does.
Yeah, bring him back.
And
He also
he's
has
gonna
an
do it for a
offensive.
fraction of the price.
He also has an offensive upside. I know. I think he
He's got
scored one
speed.
goal. He scored one goal with the Leafs this year, but I'm pretty sure he had 10 with Minnesota. Like, and
Yeah,
that's
he
playing on
actually had
their
a
like
hat trick. I don't know if it was this year. I think it might have been last year. Yeah, he scored a
call
hat trick.
call me crazy, but I don't mind paying a third line center like
He's not
anywhere.
a third line center though.
He's
I,
not
David Camp.
he was playing fourth line here, David Camp. Yeah.
interesting.
Well,
Yeah,
he
that's a
was
little bit
he was
like
being
this is the thing
paid.
is we felt like we were missing a 3C all year long, and they ended up putting Domi there in the playoffs, and obviously like that worked out. And if you bring Domi back, that might be the spot he plays in full time. Which
I'm trying to
yeah,
think
it
of
relegates him to the fourth line.
like for me, Dowd is our fourth line center, but Dowd makes 1.3, which is significantly less.
And he's
But I thought,
better than David Camp.
yeah,
Right? So he's making
that's
half the
it.
money and he's better. And I'm a David Camp guy. I'm a happy camper, but I think that's a movie that you look at. So like I think Dewar can give you a lot of the things if you just put him at the 4C spot. And Holmberg, I think you could even get like something like that out of. So yeah, I'd be okay with trading David Camp for
Another
anything.
revelation, if I'm being honest, Pontus Holmberg. Man,
Yeah, like
he
we
had a
talked about
very,
it
very
last
good series.
episode. Yeah, Holmberg's homies, man. Like that guy, he's got like a little bit, not even a mean streak. It's just he's got a bit of like rat in
He
him.
gets
Like he's got a
agitated.
slight bit of rat.
I don't
Yeah,
even think if it's like rat behavior, but he gets agitated quick, and he also gets other people agitated even quicker.
yeah,
Like he
yeah.
is
And
very quick to
one of
retaliation.
my first takeaways with him when he first came up was that he takes dumb penalties. He
He
cut those
still
out in this
does.
series. I think he took one. Yeah, like but in this series,
In
I
the
thought he
right,
was
yeah,
disciplined enough.
100%. When
In the regular
it
season, yeah.
feels like when he has to lock down, he locks down.
The penalties he takes disappear in the playoffs. Like it's a lot
Yeah,
of like ticky tacky slashes and hooks and stuff. And for the
especially
most
by
part,
game four.
yeah, like
Like
if
maybe
they're
that gets called
egregious,
in game one,
yeah,
some of his things, but then
yeah,
by game four, it's he'll board Mason Lowride,
yeah.
right?
Okay. I think we're down to three guys left. Like I don't know if you want like Yarn Croak would be like the David Camp type as well, but I think like he has
He's
straight
staying
protection
though.
too. I'd rather keep
You
Yarn
have to
Croak.
keep
Yeah,
him.
like I don't
Yeah,
think. Yeah, I just
That's
wanted
a
to mention
20
because I
goal
think
guy on the third line.
yeah,
That's
I wouldn't trade him either. So there's there's no one else really to trade. There's not a
yes.
lot of options here. You're not
Well,
trading Jake McCabe,
so here's
right?
the
So
thing.
now,
You're right. You are right. There is nobody else to trade. Now let's get into
yeah.
hypotheticals, right?
And listen, these could be. We don't know what the headspace is of management, ownership, whatever. We don't know if they have the appetite for these types of moves. I don't know if I have the appetite for these types of moves, just because of some of the logistics behind it. A lot of people are calling for Morgan Riley to be shopped after this
Not
playoffs.
happen. I'm sorry, it's not happening.
Okay, what is your opinion on Morgan Riley, and what is
I
your
I like
thoughts
Morgan
on what could
Riley.
happen there?
Morgan
Right?
Riley was probably the Leafs' best playoff player last season and the season before that. Like
On
for the
balance, I would say he's been the Leafs' best playoff player outside of William Nylander, like in their
of
like in
all,
this
yeah,
era.
of the era, I would agree. And he had a very, very bad playoffs, which yeah, no, I completely agree. I still think when did they sign him? 2 years ago?
yep.
Yeah, he's got 7.5 million for 6 more years, I believe,
For yeah,
Oof.
there's no
with
moving.
trade protection.
Yeah, no, there's no moving that
I don't
contract.
think, but like I don't think
No,
it's
no,
a
there's
like I think people would be interested.
People would be interested.
I think he's just still too valuable
Yeah,
to
listen,
us.
it's not, yeah, it's not at that moment. It's not at that crossroad
No.
just yet for
How are we
Morgan
firing him into the
Riley.
sun after like all of those great playoff series just because of one
No,
bad one? Like
a
I'm not there yet.
hundred,
I'm not.
100%.
He
There are other players on this team where their leash, and we alluded to it
Yeah.
before, their leash is cut. Like if it hasn't been cut yet, it
Yeah.
should be cut right now.
Before we get to those guys, just on Morgan Riley, my opinion with him is that every passing year, just because of age, the need for a better D partner for him is more. It just grows every year.
Yeah.
And we've had temporary solutions, some longer than others. Like TJ Brody, for the most part, was the best solution that Morgan Riley ever had as a D partner. Tyson Berry for a year didn't work. On Hainsey, Matt Hunwick, like those guys. Luke Shen is really high up there. Like he's
Well,
probably number two
probably,
behind TJ Brody,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, and just in terms of results, sample size aside, like Lucian looked the best beside Morgan Riley. My opinion with Morgan Riley is that yes, he is not a number one defenseman on a Stanley Cup winning team. By the numbers, like he is technically a number one defenseman. There's not 30 defensemen in the NHL better than him. Um, but yeah, like
well,
I think he becomes a better player when you add more two to fours beside him, right? So there's a lot of defensive available this free agency. And I think if you bring in two number three, number fours, Morgan Riley benefits from that. He looks a little bit better. So that's what I think on the where are we sitting, Brian?
I, I I don't know. I'm not sold on him. I think that you need him to be your two or three if you guys want to like go farther. The past like I think I've said this before, but like the past few teams that have won the cup or like the teams that go far have one or two number one defensemen. Tampa has two, Sergachev and Hedman. Colorado has two, Tays and McCarr. I'm just not sold on him as being that guy, and I think that you see it. It's like it's evident
This
when
team, yeah.
like
This team will never have another like they're never gonna get a McCarr or a Hughes or a Yossi or a Heiskanen.
Unless they draft it.
But yeah,
like they don't
yeah.
grow on
But
trees,
you
but you
can
need it.
yeah, and I don't know if you can get that guy in a trade, but I think you can get those secondary guys in free agency this year. You can get like he was supposed to be a free agent until he signed. Devon Tays was that type of guy. You can get like a Philip Hronik type. Um,
Matt
you can
Raw.
get like
Matt Roy.
right. So there's Matt Roy, there's Brady Shea, um, there's other names I'm blanking on here too. There is a lot of names available on defense. There's like Brett Pesci, which he's all like on the lower end after this past year, but like there is quality top four defensemen that you can add this year. So yeah, like we're not gonna get that top end guy, but I think you can get guys in that Morgan Riley echelon. The one name that's better than Morgan Riley available this summer is Brandon Montour, but he feels like a pipe dream unless we get any word that he's not gonna be re-signed. I don't know. That just seems like something that's gonna happen, but yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Two guys
Especially if
left.
Florida goes on a run. Like,
He
Yeah, like and there's the tax breaks
yeah,
that like you know what I mean? Like the Leaf
e-
number for him is way
everything
higher than the
works.
Florida number.
Everything works against the Leafs, basically.
Yeah. So Florida does have like a lot to tie up this summer. So they're gonna have to cut somebody loose. I just don't
That's
know
not
if
one
it's
of
gonna be
those
Brandon
guys.
Montour. So yeah, let's
Yeah.
not get ahead of ourselves and yeah, pipe dream. Okay, two guys left.
Yeah.
JT has been thrown around because he makes 11 million and at this point he's
Yeah.
not an $11 million player. He
Yeah.
has trade protection. Um,
you
I don't see it. I don't
you
see it.
eat you eat
I don't
his
think you
salary for
can.
this year. You eat his
I don't
salary for
think
this year.
you.
You keep him on the team, and then next year you just re-sign him to like a Pavelski deal.
I think if we
You can't
cut
trade
loose
him
with
and then
him,
resign him.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think if we cut loose
Like
yeah,
with him,
like
he's not
that's
coming
game
back.
over.
like you don't trade him. Like you take him
Oh,
on
I
for
see what
this
you're
year.
saying.
Like you take
Yes,
the L. You say okay, we just have him for one
yeah,
more year, and then you just
yeah.
resign him to the Pavelski deal, whatever the 3.5
Yeah,
x or I don't know
I
whatever that
think
number is.
If
that's
he's
probably the
receptive to that
most.
number, that's fine. But yeah, like I think you can entertain the conversation of letting him walk and just Yeah,
I
you might just have to. It depends.
I don't see a world where he where any team in the league just wants that $11 million cap hit. It's just impossible.
No,
No, nobody
yeah,
does.
I agree, and I don't think you can eat 50% on it to trade it, because then think about it. You
No,
as much as like people slag on Tavares, he's still like he's a valuable player. He's not an $11 million
He's not
player, but
unplayable.
a 65-point centerman isn't worth like minimum NHL contract. Like that's still a $5 million player. Like he's not nothing. So if you traded JT, a $5 million player, retaining half, right? So you're sending him out for 5 million. You've got 5 million dead space. Guess what you need to replace Tavares' production? A $5 million player, and then you just end up paying 10 million for exactly what you had in the first place. So you just keep him for 1 year. It is what it is. That's fine. Time will benefit both sides to figuring out what they want to do after that, I think. Right? Any objection, Dave?
No,
Right?
I like
Yeah, I
we've
don't.
just and
It's
we're
one
gonna
thing
get
without trade
into it.
protection, but
Yeah, we're gonna get into it with the next guy as well. Like the Leafs have just worked themselves into a corner, and they've worked themselves into a corner, and it also doesn't seem like they are willing to make. Not even that they're not creative enough. They're just not willing to make the move to free themselves from any sort of major cap implications. And if we're being honest, that like the Tavares one always kind of seemed like a pipe dream. It was like always kind of going to be you just got to eat the full salary, and then hopefully John wants to
you
just
figure it out from there.
re-sign
Yeah.
for something cheap next summer. But
Yeah.
let's go to the main attraction here, dude.
Yeah.
Like
5 minutes left. Let's keep it concise, but because there's a lot here. But
there's
yeah,
I
let's
think
go.
I think this is going to be the big topic for like we could just get into it a bit now. This is going to have to be like a full episode, I think. Just with our opinions that I've seen, dude, I want Mitch Marner off this hockey team right now. Could have been I wish it was yesterday, but I hope it's tomorrow. Basically. That
oh,
is at the point where I'm at with Mitch Marner, and I said it before, I don't want to not like Mitch Marner. I think he seems like a nice guy, uh, kind of. There's, I don't know. He is not a playoff player. Like is that not the biggest indictment of a single hockey player? He is not a playoff player. You cannot play with this guy on your team, on a championship winning team, to have aspirations of doing something like that. Maybe he won stuff before in his past, like in June. Did he not win an OHL Cup in junior?
You want a
you want a
Memorial
Memorial
Cup?
Cup?
He won the Mem, right? It means shit. I'm sorry. It means shit. What did William Nylander say to him? Or we suppose, right? This isn't junior anymore. This is the big leagues. And I haven't seen any improvement. For the first couple of years of Mitch Marner's career was like, yes, okay, the numbers took a sharp decline in the playoffs, especially in tighter games. Like later on in the series, they took a sharp decline, and it was always like, okay, but maybe next year with a different, like, another year of maturity. And dude, it's been 8 years, and dude, how many assists does this guy have past? How many points does this guy have past game 4 of any
I
playoff series?
In the past 5 game 7s, he has 2 assists and is a -5
It should be
in game
noted
sevens.
this is not part of Mitch Marner, but Austin Matthews still hasn't scored a Game 7 goal. That's one thing I just wanted to
Yes,
say.
yeah. Oh no,
That
I
is
think Nylander
100%.
has three. Yeah. I just want to say that. I just want to throw it out there. Okay. Yeah, so I think with Mitch, it's another thing where it's all in his control. He has full trade protection, full move protection. So unless he gives you the
Yeah.
permission to make that move, it's not happening. And you definitely have to have an idea in the back of your mind that like his camp could be spiteful and not give you that permission. Right.
Well,
I
they
think that
already
could
were.
happen. Yeah, so that's the thing is there's just a history of a not great contract negotiation, right? And there's another not great contract negotiation potentially looming. So if there's a world where Marner and his camp decide, we also need a fresh start, okay, maybe there's the deal that can be made.
Here's
But
Here's
that's
the
tough to
thing.
see.
Here's the thing for that, dude. If right now I'm currently at the point of like the next contract negotiation, you don't even like Marner's camp picks up the phone. They're like, "Hey, can we talk contract?" And you go slam the phone down.
I
Don't even talk to them. Just say,
I
yeah,
"Hey, go for a hike. Go for a walk."
I really think what like if I'm playing it out in my head, I think the best you can hope for is Brad Treliving to have some accountability with Mitch Marner. Just in press conferences and quotes, calling him out, maybe not explicitly by name, but implicating him. You can hope for the next coach to come in at his press conference to implicate him as something that needs to change. You can hope for Mitch Marner himself to come out and implicate himself as someone who needs to change, to
Didn't happen
grow.
though. That could have
He needs
started
to show
last night.
accountability. Like we know he hasn't shown enough accountability, and yeah, it didn't start last night. So bad start. And then I think what ends up happening is the same thing that happened with Willie last year. Mitch Marner's going to play lights out to start the season, and we're gonna be in another contract negotiation.
See,
that's the most that's
I
all I could see
think
happening.
the
It
only
probably goes the
difference
full year
is
though.
the only difference is I think a lot of people will not be like it until the
No, yeah,
playoff points come, until it happens in the playoffs. Like with Willie, at least you could say, okay, he's done it in the playoffs, and now he's having
yeah,
like a even bigger renaissance. Dude, Mitch Marner could have 150 points next year, and the appetite from everybody in the fan base is going to be look at all those
yeah.
empty calorie points, do it in the playoffs when you have three.
I could totally see the playoff points for whatever reason coming next year, and then like I could just see it. I can just see it. We'll have a lot more to talk about. We have like 30 seconds here. Shout out to Fubo, shout out to Razor, shout out to NHL Shop, where you can get. We'll see what Leafs jerseys you can get. Some might not be available. There might be new ones. That's all we got, and we'll see you next week.